Hey, so Larry, thank you so much for doing this with me because what a screwy story. Like Walkaway Blues. Who is singing Walkaway Blues? Who is that to you?
Before I knew the story, I just thought it was a cute little jumpy tune that she put together. You know, she sang the melody for me one day. She sang the words and the melody, you know, and I could hear how the music should sound. So I put a little 4-track demo together and had her over at the house. This is 1985.
By the way, she's good.
She was feeling it. And then, it was just a jumpy little tune, kind of cute, and I actually have her original handwritten notes that she did when she wrote the song with a couple of versions that she crossed stuff out on and everything, how songwriters do it, So anyway, once I started delving into the story, then I realized once I heard the song again, oh, that's what she's singing about, 30 years after the fact.
That's why I got the Walkaway Blues, right down to my Walkaway shoes. I'm gonna pack my stuff and I ain't looking back.
This is a wild woman. This woman, on her own, without you being involved, she did amazing stuff in strange and fascinating ways.
I think a lot of women could relate to someone like this because they wish they would have taken the chance when they had it. Even though the chance she took, once I found out the details, I said, the subtitle of my book is, "Hey Ma, what were you thinking?" And that's what I started thinking once I started finding out the details of what she did. She didn't kill anybody, but whoa.
And all my fancy scheming isn't likely to come true. And
She's some kind of a lover. If you could just describe in your own words, your mom was some kind of a lover. She was passionate.
She loved music, and when she really got into something, she definitely went all in, as you can tell. Having her horse and all that stuff after all this stuff blew away. But she was all into gardening and things like that, and music, and she would be singing all the time. She escapes her predicament when I was a little kid. By when she's washing the dishes, she's staring out the window, singing all these songs. I left my heart in San Francisco, and Deep Purple and stuff like that. And so she would, you could see the smile on her face sometimes when she's escaping, like that.
These men, like her lover that she went off with and left your dad, what are they seeing in her? They're nuts about her. She's got something.
Well, with the bandit, it was an older woman, younger man sort of thing. So I think that, since the bandit had just gotten paroled from his Alabama prison stint, came back to Chicago, he meets this older woman. And the older woman is not all that happy at home, and, things happen. Florence was, she loved to have a good time. She loved to dance. She loved she just loved music. And, I can imagine them getting together at some bar someplace when, my mother would sneak off. There's bars all around Hyde Park at the time, and it was loaded with them, left over from the 1893 Columbian Exposition. So plenty of places to go to get away, and the way our family was at the time, there were 6 kids. I'm the youngest. I'm like 2-3 years old when all this stuff was happening. And so there's plenty of older kids to take care of me. So, she just said, "I'm going out there. Make sure you watch Larry or something." I'm figuring that's probably what happened. Because they apparently had a year-long affair from what I hear. I'm not 100% sure about that. But, that sounds like about what Bill Gaskell saw in her, some adventure.
A year-long affair, but she's robbing things. She's taking money illegally. She's going to jail. She's getting out of jail. How she got out of jail? This is amazing to me.
Breaking out of jail, yeah. The only woman to ever do that from Sarasota County Jail. That was my mom.
I just got to break the story and say to you, I really admire that you wrote this book. Very few people can do that. My subscribers are writing all the time how they love to tell their stories. Give me the moment when you found out your mom was something totally different in addition to being your mom, what happened? What was that moment?
Our family really never talked about it, and we didn't know anything about it practically. For details, here's the way it all started for me, because I always obviously knew that she broke out of a jail and she got arrested in front of me, so I knew just that. So 2009, we're at our place. We lived in Berwyn, Illinois at the time, and we're at the house, and my wife is sitting at the computer. She says, "Hey, Larry, why don't we look at Google to see if Google your mother and Gaskell's name and see what we come up with?" Hey, okay. That was pretty much it. That started it, because I ran into all these newspapers, mostly from the Sarasota Herald Tribune from 1954, 55. I couldn't believe what I saw. I mean, it was like, this is my mother. Oh, man. Then I started seeing, newspaper articles with her picture and pictures of her getting fingerprinted and stuff like this. And her mugshots, finally saw her mugshots. I mean, this all just started exploding. And, after a month or so, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. After about a month or so, I really had a pretty clear picture, because I ran into like 30, 40 newspaper articles about the whole thing. In Sarasota, and Miami Herald, there was some of that, St. Petersburg Times, a couple of the newspapers, Tampa Bay Times, whatever it was called at the time. And so I was able to get a fairly complete picture in about a month. And I said, "You got to be kidding me. This is a movie."
Do you find pieces of yourself or your family in your mother that tell you more about you?
It depends on when. maybe there's you can take a little slot in time and put that one in there, but no, not really. No. She what she did was that was pretty serious in anybody's book. They didn't shoot anybody, but beyond that, this was a serious crime they did, a series of crimes, 20 armed robberies, so that we know about. And so, yeah, it's nothing like that. No, just love for music, I could say yes. She taught me gardening, so I'm a fanatical gardener right now. So aside from that, I write songs, but she didn't really write songs. She wrote a couple things, but this Walkaway Blues, that was something that she actually got finished.
That's really interesting to me, because most of us, like me, when I find out about my roots, it attaches to something in me. It gives me more insights into myself. And Oprah Winfrey always said, the more you know about your past, the more you know and can pass on to your children who you are. So how do you, in your own mind, figure this woman, your mother, and why that's not in the rest of your family?
It's all about the marriage she had to my father. That's what really forced her hand, I'd say. And that's why in the big picture, I can't blame her for what she did. I'd like to, hey, Ma, what were you thinking? But, she died before I ever found out this stuff. She died in 2005, and, the trip on the information superhighway didn't happen until 2009. And then that's opened up everything. It was just, I went from knowing less than 1% of what happened to 99.9% of what happened, because I was just totally intrigued with everything. And including, I had to find out now where my grandparents came from, and their story in Chicago when they emigrated from Poland, and where they settled. And then the census papers helped that, because I could see where they lived, the neighborhood they lived in, and their addresses from time to time, and the uncles that I had. And yeah, this is the right people, like that. And and then, the fact that she did this runaway with this guy, it's all about her relationship with my father that caused all this to happen. So guaranteed. Well, no, the other part too is that she spent 11 years growing up in a boarding school in Des Plaines, Illinois, what's now called Maryville Academy. Her and her sisters went in there in 1922 and got out in 1933, just in time for the Century of Progress in Chicago.
What was that boarding school like? I mean, give me an idea of the culture at the time.
It was called the Illinois Industrial School for Girls at the time, and so it was. I guess it was all girls, or her part of it was, and so her and her two sisters. My mother was the middle girl. They were 2 years apart, and it was a normal school. I have all her school records now, because part of my research, like I said, I went bonkers. I had to find out everything because we knew nothing about the boarding school years, and so I brought the death certificate in of my two aunts and her, and I paid a fee, and they printed everything out, and so I got to see the contract that my grandmother signed on November 15th of 1922 for the three girls, and so it was a regular school, and because the grades, I got their grade sheets from all different grades, and but they also, it was like a working farm in some respects, where they learned basic carpentry, farming, and gardening, I'd say, there was probably rabbits and chickens around, according to my Aunt Stella, the oldest sister. So, it was semi-rural, Des Plaines, Illinois in the 1920s. And, it was just a place for them to grow up, Catholic, run by the Catholics.
What I'm really asking is, what role do you believe the school, Catholicism, Polish, what role did that play in her character?
She grew up with an unrealistic expectation what family life was supposed to be like. And looking at her wedding pictures, these grandiose, this fantastic dress that she wore and everything, she, had the smile on her face. She was on top of the world, marrying Walter Baran, so I think she went into marriage without a real understanding what families were really like, because her father died when she was 7, and he would come to visit them in the boarding school, John Wilshinsky, but that's all she knew of a father and a regular kind of family, So it affected the three girls different ways, I'm sure, but that I think that was a major influence on. In other words, she grew up with an unrealistic viewpoint of what families were supposed to be like, getting accused maybe from movies, like that. So, like I said, I can't blame her for what she did, but it fueled the conflict with my father, I'm sure, because she probably like, this is a husband, this guy, and because they had a kid, within a year of being married in 1938, my oldest sister, Nancy. So all of a sudden this was thrust on her. And then, it was just the end of the Depression. World War II starts, and the other kids come popping along every 2 years. Before she knows it, she's got 5 kids. 4 years later, I come out. She got 6 kids.
So you decide to write a book. And I think your motivation, as you said to me, was to help the other members of the family know the family. If you could describe in your own words how you got to a place where you're going to write a book, which is many, many people would like to get there and haven't.
So when all of this started, when 2009, when the world exploded in front of me about my mother, the first thing I thought of was that this was going to be a movie. So I didn't really think, I thought of kind of a book, but it was so crystal clear that what she did was just bizarre, crazy. So there was a dividing line. What happened was I contacted the Sarasota Herald Tribune in Sarasota, Florida, and I put an ad in the paper. It was an ad with my mother's mugshot, description of what she did and when, and who all the actors were that she had to deal with. The sheriff, the deputies, the people in the newspaper industry down there, witnesses, and all this other stuff in the trial that she had, a couple trials that she was involved in. So that was a big hit in the newsroom down there at Sarasota Herald Tribune. The fact they saw this ad that I put in, and so they were talking about, look at this. We never knew about this stuff. This is 1954, 55. And so one of the staff writers, Billy Cox, calls me up. And, he asked me about it and da-da-da. So little by little, he's interviewing me. And I told him, I said, call my sister Jean too. She'll talk to you. And in the meantime, I met one of the bandits' ex-wives who lives in Phoenix now. And so she filled me in on a bunch of stuff. And thanks to her, I was able to get his Navy records and his Alabama prison records because he used an alias to join the Navy. And I didn't know what the alias was until she told me. And that opened everything up even wider. So what I'm saying, I got this whole story about writing the book. I call it the BTA and the ATA. BTA is before the article, and ATA is after the article. The article that Billy Cox wrote about me and my search for my mother's past coming down to Sarasota. And this article was published on Mother's Day of 2011, 3 full pages. Let me just show you this real quick. I have the paper, but it was starting to fade, so I made it into posters. 3 pages.
A huge article, Larry.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is that was the article.
How do you set about writing? I mean, like technically, did you start in the middle? Did you write it? How'd you do that? How did you write a book?
Yeah, that's where the ATA comes in after the article. Once I saw what Billy Cox wrote, then I realized, wow, this story really looks good, And I put the screenplay on my clipboard, hid that away, and I started writing the book. Right? How did I do that? Well, I had to go from my memory of what I knew, and then combine that with all this other stuff. So my initial thing was putting the chapters in order. How am I going to write the book? And and I take my experience with teaching and doing technical writing of putting a cohesive sequence of events together, So eventually I decided on the format where I'm going to start in 1954 when she got arrested by the FBI. And then I'm going to do a flashback to where my family starts, the immigrants from Poland, and then everything happened in Chicago and how the family grew and stuff like that. And everything what I felt led up to the fact that what I was able to find out, from family discussions and everything else, and the census records and, Maryville Academy, and et cetera, and just put all that in what I just felt were nice little chapters to show the building blocks of what happened. And then once it gets to the 1950s and the Big Bang, well, that's the blueprint, everything you just read in the book. When you get to the Big Bang, that kind of explains it, I think, in a way. So.
What you say makes sense, but I can tell that you don't realize, one, how hard that is, because you did it, and I'm very impressed. And not only that, I read the book, and I really liked it. And I wrote you an email saying, this guy can write. He's a real writer. A part of that may be your Polish culture you come from a verbal culture of a certain type with a certain sense of humor. What do you think about that?
We were more Americanized, and the only time I really heard Polish for the most part was when my father talked to his mother and maybe his older sister Anna. And as far as Polish food was concerned, the only time I really got Polish food because of my father's health food thing. It wouldn't be in the house, even though my mother growing up in the boarding school, she didn't grow up with Polish food. So, but when I went to wedding receptions, it was basically the two Caliendo weddings, half Polish. There'd be a lot of Polish sausage and stuff, sauerkraut, and like that. So, that was really about directly. I'm sure there's lots of indirect influences, but our family, my mother and father were very talented, but my mother showed it more because my father was more of a breadwinner, and he was very serious about paying the bills,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't have a whole lot of fun. He just didn't. And at least what we would consider fun, movies, nah, restaurants, nah, watching TV, I don't know. But anyway, but my mother, she would have fun, and it was, so given the fact that they didn't really get along that well, and then, taking the family over to somebody's house and like that for a visit and stuff like that, that rarely happened.
A recent interview I did on my YouTube channel was with a Scottish musician, and he talked about he does architecture for a business, but he has this passion for music he can't let go. What drives you to be a musician? Where is that coming from, and what do you like about that?
Some songs and some bands just blow you away, and you just want to do the same thing. You want to try and recreate that sort of thing. I've written a lot of songs, not on a whole lot of topics a lot of people would like, but like Locked Inside the Money Vice, Making Payments All Your Life. That, repossess and mortgage twice, soon you'll have to lease your life. That's not the sort of thing people want to sit back. Hey, yeah, that's cool, man. No, I don't think so. But, I've written a lot of nice songs and well done. I know how to arrange and all this stuff. And I like instrumentals. So it's just nice to be creative. Right now, all I'm concentrating on is being a lead guitar player. I'm not thinking about songs. The band I was in, after 3 years of practice, broke up right after we did our best performance ever. So the idea of getting into another band or breaking in another musician, the band, we just kind of like, well, let's not worry about this now, let's do something else. So in the late 80s, I did a solo act where I played along with backing tracks that I made, drums, bass, keyboard, harmonies. I did that in the late 80s, so that's plan B. So I'm doing that now again. So just resurrecting that so I can just play guitar and sing with my backing tracks. No problem with rehearsal. The band always knows the arrangement,
And you have hopes for the book?
Like you brought it up before, that writing the book. Why did I write the book? It was basically for the family, and I didn't have any real ideas about. I'm writing a book because I need the income, or anything like that, or being a writer. This is the only book I'm going to write. I wrote a technical manual on digital electronics, but this is a book, and this was something that I had to write because once I started finding out the truth on the internet, I just became obsessed with knowing what the heck happened. And I wanted to know absolutely everything about it. So it was driving me to tell the whole story for myself and then relay that onto my family, my nieces, nephews, sisters, and I wish my oldest sister and my brother were still around. They could, But that's essentially what the book was for. And then, of course, I'm going to tell everybody and buy this book, So, I think I've sold about 300 up to this point.
Let me see the cover for a minute. Now, let's talk about that for a second.
Yep.
In this little interview, thank you for doing this, by the way, we've never talked really about the story. So I had no idea when I started to read the book. And it is a story like Hollywood. It seems unbelievable, particularly the escape from jail and the confidence she seemed to have had, and that wonderful song that you put together with her voice.
Yeah, it's true, and it's real. It's no fluff. I didn't, thanking my sisters too, Loretta and Jean for sending me those emails that I printed word for word in the book, describing what life was like in the family before I was born, because I really didn't know anything about that. And I knew it was an integral part of explaining what my mother did and how she was and all this other stuff, So, it's, and I'll be honest with you, I thought a lot of the stuff was just funny, and because, she left when I was so young. And so, there wasn't this, my mother's gone, because I didn't realize she was gone. She was on vacation. And for a 3 or 4 year old, what does that mean? And so, there wasn't this gravitas about the whole thing. It was like I was discovering all these things from these newspaper articles. She's mean and she's tough. She's going to hurt somebody bad. She's a fighter with a taste for raw garlic. And they're saying this about my mother. This is my mother they're talking about. Man. So, so I think the intrigue of the story is the fact that it is very real and it's just down to earth.
Larry, was she tough with you like the character who shows up in the book, or did you not see that same person?
Well, mostly with my father, she could have a trigger temper. A couple times she blew her stack at me. I blew my stack back, but only in context with arguing with my father. You know, I could see that. The rest of us, well, I think she treated me with a kid glove because I was just a little kid when she ran off. I think she felt bad about that in particular. Because the next sibling was 4 years older than me, like 7 and 8 when all this happened. And my oldest sibling at the time was 15. So they could handle this better. You know, the fact, like I said, I didn't understand what was going on. So as far as I knew, you know, I was on vacation and she'll be back, you know, something like that. So, okay. And then life goes on. I'm just a little 3 or 4 year old kid watching Bugs Bunny cartoons. So, you know, like that. Everyone took care of me. So
Let's think about the future, you and I. We're now in the future, and somebody's looking at this, your family or not your family. It's 50 years from now. What would you like people to think about you, your mom, the book, the story?
that no family's perfect. We survived, you know, the 6 kids survived. You know, it wasn't always perfect for us either, but, you know, life went on. Life went on for my mother after she got it. She'd never got in trouble again, you know, that you can screw up in life big time like she did, make a very interesting decision, you know, to leave 6 kids, run off with this guy, younger guy, and do a cross-country crime spree. Server time, you know, and then, you know, once all this passes, this big storm, you know, then the waves calm down, the sun comes out, and my mother just went on and did what she wanted to do. You know, lived at the farm. I lived there with her for a short time. Had a racehorse, you know, low-quality racehorse. We weren't rich or anything. So, you know, like that. Life goes on. If you can weather the storm, things will probably get a lot better. And, you know, wouldn't change a thing. Yep.
Yep.
Pretty much it.
I understand exactly what you're saying, man. I thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it, Larry.
And I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks to my niece, Debbie. She told me about you. And because she happened to just find some stuff. And said, hey, this is Dave Hoffman guy. Oh, okay. Perfect.
You have a good day.
Right,
Your family, the people who come after you. And I do hope that wish is passed to the future because it's beautiful. Of course, life goes on. Storm is over, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And anyway, Dave, stay in touch, man. If you need anything for, you know, your end of the project.